In 1994, the book Rugby League Rebel, the Mark Geyer story, was first published. It told the story of the man we all know as MG, from his early days and humble beginnings of being bullied by a local kid everyone called Crazy on the streets of Wayland, to the highest heights of rugby league, where he'd helped Penrith win their first ever premiership and go on to represent his state and his country. So much jam-packed into his first 27 years, and then the book ends. But MG wasn't finished. He's lived another 27 years since the book has been published. MG, let's continue the Rugby League rebellion. How are you?
Hello, Liam. Good to talk to you, my man, as always. And yeah, look, just a little background on the book. I was playing at Balmain in 1993. After 1992 was the worst year of my life as far as anything goes. I've lost a close friend, and the book was kind of dedicated to Ben Alexander. I thought he would have loved the way that I covered stuff, and I just thought about him the whole way because it was a bad couple of years. I went from playing for my state, my country, to winning a comp, to basically the middle of 1992 suffering the worst shock, I think you can put it, that I've ever had, and I didn't know how to get out of it. The rugby league was the worst and last thing on my mind, and Penrith subsequently ripped up my contract because they wanted me to come back and play footy, and I said I didn't want to. And then I kind of went to Balmain under Alan Jones. He was the only bloke who wanted to really have a go at me, who would let me play there. I was damaged goods in front of most people's eyes, and I'll come back to some pretty good form. And then halfway through that year, I got a call from Gordon Allen, who said that he was going to be the new general manager of Western Reds, and Peter Mulholland was going to be our coach. And they had identified myself and Brad Mackay as two players who they wanted as the marquee players to start their club off. And I spoke to them, and within 10 minutes of talking to them, I knew that I wanted to go to Perth. So signed a 3-year deal. 1994 started, and I thought I was going to play another year at Balmain under Wayne Pearce, but was quickly realised that me and him weren't going to be a good match as far as player-coach goes, and I said, I'm not going to play, mate. I'm not. My headspace isn't right. I'm not in the right mood, and he understood. And I sat out 1994 for the first maybe month or two, knowing that I was going to Perth in '95, and my mum's cousin was the secretary of your minor bunnies up in the Central Coast in the country rugby league, and he'd been asking me for a while to come up, and I said, "Nah, I can't do that. I'm better." Like I think I might have said to him, "I'm better than that. Like I can't be playing bush footy. I'll just play for my country and state." And then a couple of months passed, and they were about 3 or 4 rounds into their competition. And I'll give them a buzz. I said, "Is that offer still on the table?" And
What made you change your mind about it?
I just wanted to play footy. I just wanted to play footy, but I didn't want to go through. I didn't want to be intense. Footy's my life. Footy's why I play, why I lived. And then it was gone from me for 2 years. Kind of, I had a year at Balmain, which I don't really remember that much. And then I went to when I'd signed with Perth, I realised that I was going to go there. But then I went up to Umina, and I enjoyed being out of sight, out of mind, and I still enjoyed playing a pretty good level of footy. Obviously I was a target up there and all that type of stuff, but got to play against a couple of journos who were writing some crap about me at the time, which was nice.
I don't reckon you'd see journos play park footy these days. I don't think. It was a different era, wasn't it?
No, well, I was sitting, it was kind of like Christmas for me, because there it was, gifted to me on a plate, and I took every opportunity to be my best football player up there, but I wasn't. I was partying, I was on the piss, and we found that Megs, my wife, found out we're pregnant halfway through that year. And I thought, didn't think much more about it. So we just, Megs was getting bigger, and we won the comp at your minor. And then the decision was made to go to Perth, and I kind of didn't. I really didn't want it, to be honest. I was quite happy being out of sight, out of mind at your minor and playing park footy. We won the comp, as I said, and I was.
Jeez, there's a lot going on in your life. There is you're a 27-year-old.
I was 26 at the time.
You're 26.
Yeah, I was 26.
So you're turning 27 at the end of 94. You're 26 years of age.
Yeah.
You've had a whirlwind of a career that's had everything. You have ticked off every box in a rugby league player's dream career. You've won a comp. You've played State of Origin. You've represented your country. And all of a sudden, you've gone from that to playing park footy, essentially. You realise you're about to become a dad. Let me just read to you your mindset from the original book about, and because you say you don't want to go to Perth at this time. You're thinking, I've won a comp, I'm loving life, I'm playing footy, I'm out of the spotlight. Let me just read to you the last paragraph in the chapter titled Westwood Ho. Obviously, you've signed the deal with the Reds, it says. I have not a single doubt that the Reds will be a success, and a brief meeting with one of Western Australia's favourite sons rammed that home a few hours after I spoke at that luncheon. A balding but athletic-looking bloke walked up to me at the hotel and shook my hand saying, "Good luck, Gaia." If you'll pardon the pun, but I was bowled right over. The speaker was none other than the immortal Test fast bowler DK Lilly. I remember commenting to one of the Reds delegation that if the great Lilly happened to know about this humble footballer, then it meant something was being done very right in WA. I'll be easy to spot in the Reds colours from the outer and press box next year. I'll be the big bloke taking the hits and leading by example. I look forward to it.
Yeah, and the irony of that was that once I'd gotten over my own tongue and my own inefficiencies that kind of got me. My wife was heavily pregnant and I wasn't getting much. I was getting $1,000 a week from Yamina. Didn't ask where it come from. It was a lot of money back in 1994. But the crowds, the crowds were up like a normal game would have got maybe 500 people. There was like 5,000 or 6,000 people coming to watch home games.
Amazing.
We got 10,000 people at Graham Park, which is now the Central Coast Stadium, for the grand final against Wyong, which ironically Steve Carter, my ex-teammate at Penrith, was the co-commentator in the grand final. So yeah, I went to Perth. I went over to Perth for a luncheon after the Reds game and done the photo stuff, and I was at this luncheon and after the grand final I went over. It was about the grand final September, maybe it was mid-October. I went over to the Reds and I wasn't looking that good. I was still pretty skinny from my partying, and I went to a luncheon which was all the Reds delegates, and DK Lilly was there, Kim Hughes was there, Terry Alderman was there, all the Perth cricketing greats. And there's a guy there as well, which I don't mention in the book, called Malthouse. Mick Malthouse was in the crowd as well, and they were. I think they come in the competition the same year we won it in '91. Maybe and that year we were coming in as the Reds. The Dockers were coming in as well. So Jared Neesham was there as well at this luncheon. So it was a star-studded luncheon, and everyone knew who I was, and I was blown away by that. I didn't know that anyone would know me. So there goes the anonymity side of it that I thought I'd get. So then I thought I'll embrace it. I flew back home, said to Megs, we're going to love it. It's a beautiful city. She was 7 months pregnant with Logs. So we went over, lived in a hotel for 2 weeks, and I arrived in Perth at 94 kilos.
Wow.
After playing the year before at 107, 108. So I'd lost about, 10 kilos just from...
And you look like a head on a stick at 94.
Oh, yeah. I was a bobble stick, one of the, the head bobbles. I look like a microphone stand. And I must confess, but then we got over, we packed. We're driving out of the airport, at Perth Airport, me and me sitting in the back. We're getting chauffeur driven to our hotel for 2 weeks. We're going to stay there. And there's a big billboard right outside as we're driving past on the Ansett, because the Ansett were our sponsors for the Western Reds. And it said, Gaia has arrived. Something like along the lines, bring it. And I went, what? So here I am thinking that no one in this hick town of Perth are going to know a clue who I was. Dennis Lilly's coming up to me. Terry Alderman saying, g'day, Kim Hughes wants to be my manager. And then there's a big billboard of me as I'm driving out of the airport. And I said to Megs, look at this. This is... So,
Wait,
yeah, we...
How did that make you feel? Like, did that spark a fire in you, or did it
Yeah, a bit of both. I did. Once I got around Peter Mulholland and the coaching staff at the Western Reds, and they started outlining what we were doing, and they started a house hunt for me in that 2 weeks I was in the hotel. I started to get excited because basically Perth was made up of all players who other clubs didn't want.
Misfits.
I was one. We were. I was the king misfit, and I was basically the marquee man. And Brad Mackay and I did all the media, and we're very much yin and yang. I was the outspoken one, he's the quiet one, and I was the character, and he's the serious, other captain. And they found a little house so 2 weeks in living in a hotel room, eating club sandwiches every day, and Meegs was munching away because she's pregnant. I was up to 112 kilos within 2 weeks, just from living a good life. So they said, "Hey, you better get some training here." So I started.
And the Western Red says, "Mate, we can't afford this room service bill. You and your wife, and me's got to get out of here.
We've got you a house here." So we went to.
It was cheaper to buy you a house than keep feeding you at the hotel.
Yeah, 100%. Moved in this great little house, little unit at South Perth, which was 10 minutes from the Wacker. That's where we trained. All our facilities was at the Wacker. Across the road at Gloucester Park, the trotting track was where we'd go for lunch. It was great. We started then all the players started to arrive, and that's when it got exciting. That's when I went, oh, okay, footy's back in my blood. And I was really pumped. I had a fantastic off-season, an amazing off-season. Got down to my playing weight of 107, 108, and the weather and the climate and the people over there suited me to a T. And
Can you compare and contrast that pre-season just for a bit? You've signed and you've played for your boyhood. Well, you were a Manly supporter, but you're playing for Penrith in the area you grew up. You're plying your trade in your backyard with the Panthers. You win a comp with them. There's that tremendous importance to the community you guys felt walking the streets there, and then you get transplanted over to the other side of the country to what is a non-rugby league state. What were the standards like you saw at training amongst the playing group? What was did you feel like you were playing for a first grade club?
Yeah, I did because, I some of the blokes they'd signed, I knew, Brad Mackay, I knew Jeff Doyle. I knew Peter Shields, my brother-in-law, came as well. He was over there. It wasn't long until my brother was over there. I'll talk about him later, but he basically didn't make any of the Penrith junior side, so he kind of said to me, can I come over and try out for the junior Reds? And I said, mate, get on the plane, you can live with us. So he was only 2 months behind me. He was there 2nd of January in '95. And it did, because we trained. Our first few training sessions were really about meeting each other, and we had a really good social club. Everyone was together as a social club. A couple of other players lived 2 doors down from where we were, so we'd go to the pub and have dinner together, and all of a sudden we started getting 8 or 9 of us started getting to training together, and it was a really quick way to galvanise a team that was just being put together. And we knew we were underdogs, so we trained all out. That off season, we went to South Africa for a 2-week tour. We stayed at Pretoria and played against the national team in 3 tests at high altitude. I thought one game it was hard. It was hard. It was because we were peak of our fitness, and I think it was the last week in November. We'd done 4 weeks of training, and then the last week of November and early December we went over there, and it was just so hot and humid. We beat them pretty easily, but it was a good way to get to know the players. We lived in hotels. The funniest thing about that trip was we were in Pretoria, and we went to this nightclub. It was the only time we went to a nightclub one night. That was our first night there. Went to this nightclub, and there's people everywhere, and 2 blokes in front of us, like as you're about to sign in, pulled out their guns and gave them to the security and put them in lockers. I said, what's place? You've got guns and put them in lockers? I went, wow. So I said to the boys, I'm not going out again. That's it. I'm staying in the hotel, and I'm training. I'm not going. We didn't go anywhere. We lived in these hotels for 2 weeks. So we really got to know each other really quick.
Yeah.
And then when we come back, we had a few weeks off for Christmas. I came back. Our first game was going to be against South Sydney in a trial game on the 10th of February, and we were staying at Brighton Les Sands at Botany there, and I got called on the day of the game, on the morning of the game, which was I think it was a Saturday. 10th.
Saturday.
Yep. And they said, "Oh, your wife's gone into labour." And I went, "Oh shit!" So I rang Pete Mulholland. I said, "Mate, I've got to go." He said, "Get in a cab and go." So and Megs was in Penrith, so I drove back to Penrith, and she had a 36-hour labour. Didn't have Logs until like 4 a.m. on the Monday. So, and obviously having 5 kids now, we realise that, the second one, but Montana almost had half a head out before we got to the hospital. Okay, she'll be right. Yeah. But yeah, it was that kind of 6 months from leaving your minor, going to Perth with Meegs, seeing all these signs, being at a luncheon. It was surreal, because all of a sudden here I am again. I've gone from being 91 seems like so far ago, from playing a test match, playing for my country, playing for State of Origin, winning the comp, and then going through what we went through with Ben, the trials and the absolute tragedies of that. Going to Balmain, going to your minor, and then I'm in Perth. Like, what is this?
And so and that's it. You're in Perth now, right? You're in Perth. You're settled. You did actually, even though you didn't play, the Reds got up in that game against South Sydney. But your first year would prove to be your best with the Reds.
Yeah.
You played 15. You played 15 games. Tell me about, because by this stage you talk about the billboard. Gaia has arrived that greets you in Perth.
Yeah, Gaia has arrived. Yeah,
the Gaia has arrived. They obviously took it down when Matt turned up. So
the Gaias have arrived. Put S on the end.
He got up there with a big Sharpie and put an S on the end. You're in Perth. You're settled, okay? But at this point, you're 27 years of age, and you are still Mark Gaia, the rugby league rebel.
Yeah.
What is life like out on the town for you? Because Perth is a party town, and we have seen some truly tragic stories about footballers in particular in Western Australia and what has befallen them. I mean, Ben Cousins, probably the most famous of them all to survive. Tragedy struck Chris Mainwaring. It's
I used to party with Chris Mainwaring a lot.
There is trouble around the corner in Perth if you can look for it.
Well, there's gangsters everywhere. There's gangsters in every city, but when you're a newbie to town, you quickly get pointed out to who the baddies are and they happen to love rugby league. I was about 3 or 4 weeks into I went out for the first time. We'd gotten back to Perth, so Megs and Logs had been born, February 12th, 95. Come back to Perth. Megs' mum Leonie come with us. To live with us, so that was a great help. So Megs was never lonely, so I said, I'm just going to go with the boys and have a beer, babe. She goes, yeah, no worries, I'll see you later. And so, yep. Would have been there for 3 beers, and all of a sudden I'm standing there without, we stood out like dog's balls because we're big blokes. We're not like AFL players who are like basketballers. They're tall and they're thin and they're fit. We turn up the town, all looking like bodybuilders. And we stand out. So we're at this nightclub. We're at this pub. It was just a pub, not a nightclub. We're at a pub, and I'm standing there, and there's a band going on. And next minute, I felt something hit me in the back of the head. And I went, "What's that?" And then it happened. Then it happened again, and then I realised that somebody was throwing ice at my head.
Oh.
So I looked around. There's this group of bikies standing there, like they were angry-looking mothers. I went, "Oh my God, here we go." I just knew I knew something was going to happen. I knew there was going to be something happening in the next 5 minutes. And I went up to them. I said, "What are you doing, mate?" He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "What are you throwing ice at my head for?" They said, "F off." "Well, who are you?" I said, "No, I'm no one. I just don't throw ice at my head. I'll throw ice back at you." He goes, "Well, I'd like to see you try it." So I got a big hunk of ice out of this machine and just threw it right at his head. And he swung a punch at me. So I swung a couple of punches at him, knocked him out, and next minute I'm sitting in a police station. Which was, yeah, exactly. I mean, here we go. So they went, luckily there's CCTV footage of this, and he, showed that he threw first. He threw the ice at my head. They showed that, you could see that. So that made headlines. So that was a good way to get the Western Reds on the map, I suppose, because straight away people were talking about it. It was the first time a rugby league player, I think, was on the front page of the Western Australian.
And for the knockers out there of MG back in the day, right? And there were plenty. I mean, there's a chapter in the original book about the media types that were going after you on a regular basis.
Yeah.
This is just catnip for them. This is
Oh,
everything they expected to happen when Mark
you know what?
Geyer signed up with a new franchise.
I talk about journos in the book, and now I look back as a wiser, older man, and most 99.5% of what I did was my own fault. They had a job to do to write about it. I don't blame them one bit for what they written about me. I gave them the ammunition to do it on a weekly basis. It would seem, and then here I'm in Perth, not even a month, and I'm in a police station with a bikie.
What did the club say to you?
They just said, "What happened?" I told them. They said, "Mate, come on. This is, you're a senior player here now. And I said, "I know." But it wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last time that I ended up on two other assault charges in Perth. I got off both. I never started them over there.
You finished it.
Yeah, and that's what I got on a couple of them. But it was hard.
Was that the existence for you the whole time in Perth? But again, like the novelty probably never wore off for people of you being there and being who you were. And we see current day NRL players, you see how difficult life can be when they just want to go out and have a beer with their mates.
Yeah,
and you talk about it extensively. Every camera is a video. Every phone, is a camera
gun.
now.
It's a loaded gun.
It's a loaded gun. Now, that wasn't what it was in your day, but every bloke with a couple of beers under his belt probably thought, here's a chance for me, bikie or otherwise, probably thought, here's a chance for me to make a name for myself.
Well, then we played our first game against St George, and it was a big launch of the new round. There was 20 teams in the competition. We'd come in, Cowboys had come in, the South Queensland Crushers, the Auckland Warriors. So all these teams, we played them on consecutive days, and we were last. So one of the teams had won. I think the Warriors won. The other two teams had lost. So we're about to play a favourite for the competition, which was the Dragons. In 1995, first game, I think we played one. So it would have been 4 o'clock in Sydney. It was 1 o'clock in Perth.
25,000 in attendance at the Wacker.
And the temperature hit 41 degrees. And we're used to it, because with that dry heat of Perth is really, really something to behold if you're not used to it. So St George came over, and they were cannon fodder for us, really. So that 24,000 people went away from that ground thinking we were the bee's knees. We were. Everything that happened in the first month or so, as far as promoting the game, amplified by 20 once we'd beaten the Dragons. That were on everywhere. We'd be everywhere. But then it was only 2 weeks later. We played, I think, it was the Sharks at the Wacker. So I didn't realise that the Western Reds, as part of their deal, they had to pay opposing teams to come over for their flights and their accommodation. So within 3 weeks, they were broke, basically. And they said, there's this new competition coming in, John Rebo and News Limited, it's called Super League. We're aligning ourselves with them. And they said, for those of you who want to align yourself with this new conglomerate, you've got to be at the Sheraton at midnight tonight. And turned up, and there was about, I reckon, 3/4 of the team. Brad Mackay, he went back to ARL. But we played out the whole season of 95. This was for 96 onwards. And I remember sitting in the foyer at the Sheraton, and all the bigwigs of, I think, Ken Cowley and David Gallup, and they were interviewing players one by one. So I was on $180,000 a year to go to the Western Reds as their marquee player. Oh, that was big money.
That's 95.
That was 95. So I was on probably, in my last year at Penrith in 92, I would have been on 115 maybe. I went to Balmain for 110. Went to Yamina for $1,000 a game. So in this time I'd run, I had bills coming up. Once at Yamina, I was so behind in a lot of payments that I was running out for a game against the Entrance, and a bloke served me a summons as I was running out in the ground. He served me a summons. He said, mate, I went, not. I said, I didn't touch it. So I've got to play a game being served the summons. Far out, man.
That is got to be...
Running through a, you know how the reserve grade give you a guard of honour?
Yeah.
So I'm going through the guard of honour, and one of the blokes put his hand through the guard of honour and served me a summons.
did
I mean,
not.
I swear. Yeah, he did. He did. He did. So yeah, that was it was. So I had no money. I was broke. So I went to the Western Reds in a hope of Then we all of a sudden were broke. But then Super League came, and the first guy I remember it vividly because the first one up to talk to News Limited was a young bloke called Eamon Edgar. And Eamon was a young bloke who was on the bench for reserve grade. He was a up and coming young bloke. He was a winger, outside back. I reckon he would have been on $50,000 a year. Well, he come out, and the smile on his face was like Luna Park. I said, "What's going on, mate?" He goes, "Mate," he said, "I just got $150,000 per year." I went, "Oh," and I'm last. I'm in last, so I'm the big fish because I've already had calls from the ARL saying this is what we want to give you. We want to give you this, give you that, and all these inducements. If you sign for us, we give you extra $100,000. So I went in on my own to this meeting. I'm sitting there. I said, "Okay, I want $450,000 first year. I want $550,000 the second year. Third year, I want $650,000."
You did this by yourself?
By myself. Only because I had the intel. I seen them all come. I saw, okay, he got that. Oh, well, I'm getting that.
Sorry, just quickly, before you... I've looked up Eamon Edgar's career. He total played 5 games of first grade in 97 in the Super League.
Yeah. He was on the bench for reserve grade in 95.
Right.
50,
okay, so you've gone in, you've put your demands on the table.
Yep. And they said, "Yep, no worries." I went, "What?" And then I got a text message, or not a text, a fax. I got a fax from Brandy. Brandy had gone to the Auckland Warriors. And he said, "MG, make sure." I said, "Well, like we're corresponding."
Yeah.
Because we knew we'd go in this. I said, "Like, what are you going to ask for?" There's all these, coming back inducements. He said, "Mate, we're getting like most blokes who sign with Super League here got an extra $250,000. I said, "What?" So I went back to him. I said, "No, ARL have gazumped that. They want to give me an extra $200,000 up front to sign." He goes, "I will give you $250,000." So the money was unbelievable. The money was just the money would make today's money look shit.
What
the money we're on in Super League and the ARL blokes in that time frame. Well, I set myself up for life because I was in that much debt. I had no money to buy. I bought a house at Careen in Perth for $350,000, 4 streets back from the beach. And it was massive. It was a massive house. That was the party house. Everyone would come to my house, pool tables.
So I just want to nail down those figures again. This is you are 6 months, 12 months prior. You're playing for $1,000 a game, getting served by blokes for bills you hadn't paid in your minor.
Yep.
12 months later, you are sitting in a room with the bosses of Super League, negotiating for a 3-year deal at $450, then $550, then $650.
Yep.
And an upfront payment of $250,000.
Yep.
That's Mark Bouris that's Mark Bouris type negotiating.
Well, I had the intel. I knew what was ahead of me. I knew being last came off the rank.
Did Meeks believe you when you went home and told her you what you'd just done?
I said I went home and said, "Babe, we won lotto." I said, "You won't believe this." And I told her. She goes, "What?" So we bought this mansion up on the beach, and that was kind of why. That's why you spoke a minute ago about 95 being my best year because I was in footy mode. Once this money came in, I bought 2 jet skis, his and hers. I used them twice. I had the best of everything. I lived 4 streets from the beach and went there twice in my time at Perth, like from my house. We'd go there and swim with the team and that, but had a big pool in my backyard. And the kids, Logan was born. He turned 1 over there, and Montana was born in Perth, and but that first year was like a cyclone went through it. Like it was just we'd gone from winning against the Dragons, and I think we ended up that year 11-11, if memory serves. We won 11, lost 11, and we just missed out on making the top 8, I think. Our last game of the year was against the Dragons, and we had to beat them to make semi-final footy, I believe.
Geez, you've got a good memory. You are nailing it. You finished the season against St George, playing away at Cogra.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, against Gordy Talos. And so the irony of that was the team that we played in the first round of that year and beaten, we had to beat them to make finals footy, or had been a chance to make finals footy, and I think they wiped our bum with it. They kicked our butts.
36-18.
Yeah, so they won convincingly. So that was it. And then basically it was the following year, get ready for Super League because here it comes.
Well, not to do an Eddie Maguire, MG, but let's get to that after the break. Coming up on the next episode of Rugby League Rebel Part 2, the rebellion continues. We explore MG's time in the Super League and his return to his beloved Penrith Panthers. Until then, MG.
Adios.